Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If you want to hear my story, please subscribe and comment below where you are watching from. Today, I'm going to share a part of my life that I never thought I'd go through. A story full of betrayal, heartbreak, and tough decisions. My son, whom I raised with so much love, one day told me that it would be better for me to stay in the guest room. He said it would be more comfortable for me. I trusted him, thinking he just wanted the best for me. But little did I know, that was only the beginning of my nightmare. One day, I came home and found my clothes packed, my bedroom door locked, and my daughter-in-law sleeping in my bed as if she had earned the right to it. I was shocked and heartbroken. I asked my son why this was happening, and he just said it was temporary. Temporary. But for me, it felt like a punishment that would never end. Every day in that tiny guest room, I sat and thought about how drastically my life had changed. My own son, the one who raised me, whom I trusted more than anyone, had treated me like a stranger in my own home. The pain and anger were unbearable. You see, I had spent my entire life in that house. Every wall, every corner, every room was filled with my memories, my laughter and my struggles. And suddenly it all felt like it didn't belong to me anymore. Sitting on that small guest bed, I asked myself, am I really the owner of this house? Or have I become a guest in my own life? But this was just the beginning. What happened next would completely change the course of my life. I realized that I could not stay under someone else's control, living as a shadow of my own home. I had to take action, reclaim my dignity, and make a decision that would surprise everyone, even myself. If you want to hear what happened next, make sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell. In the upcoming parts, I will share every detail of how I faced the betrayal, how I struggled, and how I ultimately took control of my life again. When I first realized what my son had done, I couldn't believe it. I kept thinking maybe it was just a mistake, or maybe he didn't understand how deeply it hurt me. I tried to talk to him calmly, explaining that this was my home, my memories, my life, but he just brushed me off. He said it was only temporary and that I would be more comfortable in the guest room. Days turned into weeks, and every day the guest room felt smaller and smaller. I felt trapped, invisible in my own home. My daughter-in-law walked around confidently in my bedroom, acting as if I didn't exist. Every time I passed by, I felt a pang of anger and disbelief. How could my own family treat me this way? Was this what raising a child, nurturing him, and giving him everything meant? I tried to stay strong. I reminded myself that my life wasn't over, that I had lived through hardships before, and I could survive this too. But it was hard. I felt lonely, betrayed, and humiliated. Friends and neighbors didn't even know what was happening, and I didn't want anyone to see me as weak. So I endured it silently, day after day. One evening, as I sat on the small guest bed staring at the ceiling, I realized something important. My home, my life, my dignity, they didn't belong to anyone else. No one had the right to decide where I could sleep, what I could wear, or how I could live in my own house. That's when I knew I had to make a choice. I couldn't stay trapped under their control, pretending everything was okay. I had to do something bold, something they wouldn't expect. But fear still held me back. How would people react if I took action? What if I lost my son completely? What if I had to leave the house I had loved for decades? These questions haunted me night and day. Yet, deep down, I knew that my peace, my dignity, and my respect mattered more than anyone's temporary excuses. That night, I made a promise to myself. I would not be ignored. I would not be pushed aside. And I would not let anyone take away the life I had built. I didn't know exactly how I would do it, but I knew the moment had come to stand up for myself. Little did I know, the next steps I took would shock my entire family and change my life forever. If you're ready to hear what I did next, stay tuned. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel so you don't miss any part of my story. In the next video, I'll tell you exactly how I planned my steps and what finally gave me the courage to act. The next few days were the hardest of my life. I kept thinking about my next move, pacing the guest room, staring at the locked door of my bedroom, and trying to imagine a life where I could feel respected again. Every little thing in that room reminded me of what I had lost. My comfort, my space, my authority in my own home. I started observing my son and daughter-in-law closely. I noticed their routines, their habits, and how they treated me when they thought I wasn't paying attention. Every conversation, every gesture, made it clear that they believed I had no say anymore. They treated me like a guest, an outsider, and that fueled a fire inside me. I realized I couldn't wait for them to change. I had to make them see that I wouldn't be ignored. It wasn't easy. I felt angry, frustrated, and even scared. I thought, what if I confront them and things get worse? What if they take revenge? But the longer I stayed silent, the more powerless I felt. That evening, I sat quietly in the guest room and made a decision. I would take control of my life again, no matter the cost. I had to plan carefully, but I had to act. I began by organizing my thoughts, making a list of what I wanted. I didn't just want my bedroom back. I wanted my dignity restored, my rights as a mother and homeowner recognized, and my life back on my terms. I realized that this was bigger than anger. This was about reclaiming myself. That night, I went through old documents and started gathering information about the house. I reminded myself of every investment, every payment, every effort I had put into making this house a home. I realized that legally and morally, this house was mine. My son might have tried to take control, but he had no real claim over me or my property. This thought gave me strength. The following days, I began subtly asserting myself. Small actions at first, standing my ground during conversations, expressing my opinions clearly, refusing to let them boss me around. Each small act of resistance gave me a little more confidence. I felt my courage growing, bit by bit, until I knew that the next step would be bold. I can't tell you yet what I did next, because that is the most dramatic part of my story. But I promise you, the moment I took action, everything changed. The very people who thought they had all the power over me were about to learn a lesson they would never forget. If you're following my story, make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on, because the next part will reveal how I turned the tables and started taking back my life. You won't believe what happened next. It's shocking, emotional, and a true lesson in standing up for yourself. The day finally came when I decided enough was enough. I woke up in that cold little guest room, looked around at the four walls that felt more like a prison than a place to rest, and I said to myself, this ends today. I walked into the living room where my son and his wife were sitting. My son barely looked up from his phone, and my daughter-in-law gave me that same smug smile that had been haunting me for weeks. I stood tall, even though my heart was racing, and I said, this is my house. I built this life, not you, and I will not be treated like a stranger anymore. My son just laughed lightly, as if I were being dramatic. He said, Mom, stop making this a big deal. You're overreacting. We're just trying to make things easier for you. Easier? To be locked out of my own bedroom? To have my belongings shoved into a suitcase like I didn't matter? That moment I realized words alone would never be enough. They didn't respect me anymore, and they didn't intend to. I had to do something that would make them listen. Something that would remind them who I really was. So I went back to the guest room, locked the door behind me, and sat down with the paperwork I had gathered. The house deed, the bills, every document that proved the truth. It was all mine, not theirs. Every brick in this house had been paid for with my sacrifice. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. If they wanted to treat me like an outsider, then fine. I would show them what it really meant to be left without a home. A bold idea began forming in my mind, one that scared me, but also filled me with strength. I decided I would sell the house, the very house they thought they had taken over. I would take away the ground beneath their feet, the roof over their heads, and prove once and for all that without me, they had nothing. Of course, I didn't tell them right away. I kept quiet, acting as if nothing had changed. But inside, I was burning with determination. Every time my daughter-in-law walked past me with that arrogant look, I thought, you have no idea what's coming. Every time my son dismissed my feelings, I reminded myself soon, he will learn the truth. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life. They had pushed me into a corner, and now I was going to show them that I wasn't weak. I wasn't helpless, and I wasn't going to be silent anymore. What happened next shocked even me. Selling the house was just the beginning. When the papers were signed and reality hit, my son and his wife finally understood what I had done, and their reaction was something I will never forget. Stay with me, because in the next part I'll reveal exactly how I sold the house, what I told them, and how their world came crashing down in an instant. The day I decided to take action, I contacted the real estate agent I had trusted for years. I didn't tell my son or his wife. I needed this to be completely under my control. I gathered all the documents, the ownership papers, and every piece of evidence proving this house belonged to me. My heart was pounding, but I felt alive for the first time in weeks. I listed the house quietly, setting the price higher than I ever imagined, because it wasn't just a house anymore. It was my statement. Every brick, every corner, every room had memories that they had no right to take from me. I felt a strange mix of sadness and empowerment as the process began. For the first time, I realized I wasn't powerless. I was in control. When the first potential buyers came to view the house, I made sure everything was perfect. I wanted the house to shine, to remind them what they had been living in without truly appreciating. Meanwhile, my son kept walking around, acting like he still had authority here. Little did he know, the decision had already been made, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. I remember the day the papers were signed. I called my son into the living room and I calmly told him, "This house is no longer yours to control. It's been sold and everything is final." His face went pale, his confident smirk completely gone. I saw shock, anger, and disbelief flash across his eyes. My daughter-in-law looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "Mom, this isn't fair," my son stammered, as if the word fair could undo months of disrespect. I looked him straight in the eyes and said, "Fair? Do you know what fair is? Fair is respecting the person who raised you. Fair is not locking your mother out of her own home. You don't get to decide my life anymore." In that moment, I felt a wave of liberation wash over me. I wasn't just selling a house, I was reclaiming my power, my dignity, and my voice. They finally realized that treating me like a guest in my own home had consequences they hadn't imagined. After the sale was finalized, I packed my belongings and left the house behind. It was bittersweet, so many memories, so many years, but I didn't feel loss anymore. I felt freedom. For the first time in months, I could breathe without fear, without humiliation, without feeling invisible. I learned something important through all of this. Sometimes, taking a stand means making bold decisions even if it scares you. You have to prioritize your own dignity and self-respect above everyone else's temporary comfort. I wasn't just leaving a house, I was leaving behind the disrespect, the betrayal, and the control that had weighed me down for so long. In the next part, I'll share how my life changed after that day, how I rebuilt my world, and the lessons I want every one of you to take from my story. Make sure you stay subscribed, because this part is emotional and inspiring. You won't want to miss it. Leaving the house was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made, but it was also the most freeing. For the first time in months, I felt like I had control over my life again. I moved into a smaller apartment, one that I chose entirely for myself. Not because anyone told me it was comfortable. Every corner of this new place reminded me that I was building my life on my own terms. At first it was lonely. I missed the old house, the memories, and even the routine I had shared with my son and his wife. But slowly I realized that what I truly missed wasn't the house. It was the sense of security and respect that they had taken from me. And now I had regained that. I was in charge of my own life. Friends and neighbors were shocked when they learned that I had sold the house. Many of them asked if I regretted it. At first I didn't know how to answer, but then I realized, no, I didn't regret it. The house was just bricks and walls. What mattered was my peace, my dignity, and my happiness. For the first time, I was living for myself, not for someone else's control or approval. Every day, I found small joys that I had forgotten existed. I decorated my apartment exactly the way I wanted, cooked meals for myself without compromise, and even started reconnecting with old friends I had neglected. Life felt lighter, brighter, and more meaningful. I realized how much energy I had spent worrying about how others treated me. And now I could focus on what truly mattered, my own growth and happiness. Of course, my son and his wife didn't take it well. They called, texted, even tried to guilt me into reconsidering. But I had learned a valuable lesson. You can't control how others react, and you can't live your life for their comfort. I calmly explained that my decision was final, and that I was choosing to live with respect for myself, not with resentment or fear. It wasn't easy to completely let go of the past, especially after feeling so betrayed. Some nights, I still felt a pang of sadness thinking about the house and the life I had lost. But then I reminded myself I had turned a painful situation into empowerment. I had reclaimed my voice, my dignity, and my life. And that, more than anything, was worth everything. Through this experience, I learned that age, relationships, or family ties do not give anyone the right to disrespect you. You are allowed to stand up, take bold actions, and prioritize yourself when necessary. Your peace and dignity are priceless, and no one should have the power to take them away. In the next part, I'll share how my life continued to transform after leaving the house, how I found strength I didn't know I had, and how I started a chapter that was completely my own. Stay tuned, because this is where my story becomes truly inspiring. After leaving the house, I realized that I had a chance to rebuild my life completely on my own terms. I started by creating a routine that focused on my well-being and personal growth. I would wake up early, take a walk, and spend time reflecting on what truly mattered to me. It was liberating to know that I no longer had to answer to anyone's demands or expectations. I also reconnected with friends I had lost touch with over the years. I realized that I had isolated myself, often prioritizing my family over my own happiness. Now I could reach out, laugh, share stories, and simply be myself. The joy of genuine connection reminded me that life doesn't end with betrayal. It can begin again, even stronger than before. Financial independence became another important focus. Selling the house gave me the means to live comfortably, but I wanted more than just security. I wanted empowerment. I began exploring small business opportunities, considering hobbies that could turn into income, and even learning new skills online. Each step reminded me that I was capable of more than I had imagined. Emotionally, it was still a challenge. There were days when I thought about my son and the way he had treated me. Anger and sadness would surface, but I made a conscious effort to channel those feelings into motivation rather than letting them weigh me down. I reminded myself that holding on to resentment wouldn't help me build the life I deserved. One of the most powerful moments came when I realized I didn't have to rely on anyone else for validation. For years, I had defined myself through my role in the family, as a mother, a caretaker, a homemaker. But now I understood that my worth was independent of how others treated me. That awareness gave me strength I had never known before. I also started documenting my journey, writing down my experiences, thoughts, and feelings. Sharing my story became a form of healing, and I hoped that it could inspire others who were facing similar betrayals. I realized that even in pain there is purpose, and our struggles can guide us toward resilience and self-discovery. Little by little, my life began to feel whole again. The fear, the helplessness, and the humiliation that had once consumed me were replaced with confidence, clarity, and determination. I understood that independence isn't just about money or property. It's about reclaiming your voice, your choices, and your peace. In the next part, I'll share how I started creating new relationships, discovering joy, and truly embracing freedom. This is where my story shifts from survival to empowerment. And I promise you, it's inspiring, emotional, and full of lessons for anyone who feels trapped in their own life. Once I had settled into my new life, I realized that freedom wasn't just about leaving a house or removing myself from a toxic situation. It was about truly embracing who I was and what I wanted. I began reconnecting with people I had neglected over the years, attending small gatherings, and even joining local community events. Every interaction reminded me that life could still be beautiful. I started surrounding myself with positive influences, friends who encouraged me, supported my decisions, and celebrated my independence became my new family. I realized that it's not blood alone that defines family. It's love, respect, and support. These new connections gave me confidence and reminded me that I wasn't alone. Even though my own son and daughter-in-law had tried to make me feel that way, hobbies and personal passions also became a huge part of my healing. I spent time gardening, reading, and even learning to paint, activities that I had long put aside for the sake of family responsibilities now brought me immense joy. Each day I felt a sense of accomplishment and happiness that had been missing for far too long. I also learned to speak up for myself more boldly. Before, I had held back to avoid conflict or to keep peace at home. Now I refused to let anyone dismiss me or make me feel small. Every time I expressed my opinions confidently, I felt a little stronger. Every small victory built my courage, and slowly, I became unshakable. Financial independence continued to grow too. I invested some of the proceeds from the house sale wisely, ensuring that I had a stable future. This gave me not only comfort, but also a sense of security I had never experienced before. I realized that when you take control of your life, you are no longer vulnerable to manipulation or betrayal. But perhaps the most important change was within myself. I learned to forgive, not my son or his wife yet, but myself. I forgave myself for any guilt or doubt I had carried, for letting fear control my decisions, and for believing that I was powerless. That forgiveness brought peace, and with it came clarity and strength. Every morning, I now wake up feeling grateful, not for what I had, but for what I have regained: my independence, my dignity, and my voice. Life isn't perfect, and challenges still come, but I know now that I can face them with courage. In the next part, I will share some of the most difficult moments I faced even after leaving the house, moments that tested my resolve, but also reinforced my strength. I promise it will be emotional, raw, and inspiring for anyone who has ever felt trapped in their own life. Even after leaving the house and reclaiming my independence, life wasn't always easy. There were moments when the pain of betrayal hit me hard. I would sometimes think about my son, the boy I raised, the one I trusted, and feel a wave of sadness mixed with anger. It was difficult to process that the person you nurture could treat you so cruelly. One evening, I received a call from my son. He sounded upset, almost desperate, trying to explain himself. He said things like, "Mom, I didn't mean for it to go this far. And it was never my intention to hurt you." But I had learned by then that words alone mean nothing without respect and action. I listened calmly, without letting my emotions take over. I realized that no apology could erase what had been done. During these challenging moments, I had to remind myself why I had made the choices I did. I reminded myself that staying in the house, under their control, would only have prolonged my suffering. I reminded myself that dignity, respect, and independence are priceless, and I wasn't willing to give them up for the sake of appearances or family ties. Sometimes loneliness crept in. Leaving the house meant leaving behind years of memories and a sense of familiarity. But I learned to fill that void with things that nurtured me: books, music, walks in the park, and conversations with friends who truly cared. Slowly, I began to realize that being alone didn't mean being lonely. It meant having space to heal, reflect, and grow. Financial matters also tested me. There were moments of worry: how to manage expenses, how to secure my future. But each challenge taught me resilience. I carefully managed my finances, invested wisely, and made plans that ensured I would never feel helpless again. These actions strengthened my sense of control over my life. The most difficult moments, however, were emotional. Seeing my son's occasional attempts to reach out stirred up complicated feelings, part longing, part frustration, but I realized that my responsibility was to myself, not to fix their behavior. My love for my child remained, but I no longer allowed it to dictate my happiness or self-worth. Through all this, I learned an invaluable lesson. Strength doesn't mean ignoring your pain. It means facing it, learning from it, and using it to build a life that honors you. I began to trust myself more, believe in my decisions, and embrace the freedom I had fought so hard to reclaim. In the next part, I'll share how my confidence and independence allowed me to create a new chapter filled with joy, purpose, and empowerment. This is where my story becomes uplifting and inspiring, proving that even after betrayal, life can be beautiful again. After months of rebuilding my life, I began to truly enjoy the freedom I had fought so hard to reclaim. Each morning, I woke up with a sense of purpose and excitement that I hadn't felt in years. I started pursuing activities and passions that had been on hold for decades, simply because my life had always been consumed with caring for others. Now it was time to care for myself. I enrolled in art classes, something I had always wanted to do but never made time for. Painting became a way to express my emotions, my pain, my anger, my joy, and it brought me a deep sense of fulfillment. I also joined a local community group where I met people who inspired me, supported me, and encouraged me to dream again. These relationships became my new foundation, reminding me that love and respect can exist outside family ties. Financial independence gave me confidence I never knew I could have. I invested the money from the house sale wisely and began to manage my own income. Knowing that I could support myself without relying on anyone gave me a freedom that was truly priceless. I realized that independence isn't just about money. It's about having the power to make your own decisions and live life on your terms. But the most important change was internal. I no longer carried the weight of resentment or fear. I had learned to forgive myself for the moments of doubt, for feeling weak, and even for loving a son who had betrayed me. I didn't forgive my son or his wife yet. It wasn't about them, but I forgave myself for letting their actions define my happiness. That inner peace was transformative. I began to enjoy small joys every day, gardening in my new balcony, hosting tea for friends, reading in the sunlight, and taking long walks while reflecting on my journey. Life felt meaningful again, and I realized that happiness isn't about having a perfect life. It's about finding peace, joy, and purpose in the life you create. The biggest revelation was understanding my own strength. I had faced betrayal, humiliation, and isolation, and I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more independent. I understood that no matter what life throws at you, the courage to act, the will to reclaim your dignity, and the belief in yourself can change everything. If you are watching this and have ever felt trapped, disrespected, or powerless, I want you to know that it's never too late to take control of your life. Your voice matters, your dignity matters, and your happiness matters. Stand up for yourself, make bold decisions, and remember, you are stronger than you think. In the next part, I'll share how I fully embraced my new life, the unexpected joys I found, and the lessons that turned my pain into empowerment. Stay tuned, because this part is uplifting and a true testament to resilience and courage. By the time I had fully settled into my new life, I realized something profound. My journey wasn't just about leaving a house or standing up to betrayal. It was about discovering who I truly was and what I was capable of. For years, I had defined myself through my family, always putting others' needs above my own. But now I finally understood that my worth isn't determined by anyone else. I started focusing on personal growth in ways I had never imagined. I took classes, explored new hobbies, and even started volunteering in my community. Helping others reminded me that pain can be transformed into purpose, and that our experiences, no matter how difficult, can inspire and support someone else. One of the most powerful lessons I learned is the importance of boundaries. For so long, I had allowed my son and his wife to control my life, dictate where I could sleep, and even make decisions about my own home. I realized that love does not mean surrendering your self-respect. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary for survival and well-being. I also embraced the joy of self-reliance. Every small decision, every choice I made independently, reminded me of my own strength. From financial matters to personal plans, I knew that I had the ability to create the life I wanted without asking permission or waiting for approval. That realization was incredibly empowering. Even though the betrayal I experienced was painful, it taught me resilience. I learned that challenges, no matter how devastating, are temporary if you have the courage to act. The strength I discovered within myself was more valuable than any house, any possession, or any relationship that had tried to diminish me. I also found peace in forgiveness, not necessarily forgiving those who hurt me, but forgiving myself for any guilt, doubt, or fear I had carried. That forgiveness gave me clarity and freedom, and it allowed me to fully embrace life again. I no longer lived in the shadow of the past. I was free to create a new story, one built on my own values and choices. Looking back, I realized that everything I went through, every moment of fear, anger, and heartbreak led me to this point. I am stronger, wiser, and more independent than I ever imagined. I am no longer defined by betrayal, but by the courage it took to rise above it. In the next and final part, I will share the ultimate conclusion of my journey, the lasting impact of my decisions, how my life continues today, and the powerful lessons I want everyone watching to take away. This part will be emotional, inspiring, and the perfect way to end my story. This is the final part of my story, and I want to leave you with the most important lessons I learned through everything I went through. After selling the house, leaving my son and daughter-in-law behind and starting over, I finally understood what true freedom and empowerment really mean. My life today is nothing like it was before. I live in a space I chose, surrounded by things I love. I wake up every morning knowing that my happiness, my peace, and my dignity are mine alone. I make decisions without fear, without guilt, and without needing anyone's approval. Every day is a reminder that I am in control of my own life. I rebuilt relationships with friends who truly care and started new connections with people who inspire me. I even discovered passions and hobbies I had never explored before: painting, gardening, and volunteering. These things brought joy and fulfillment that I had never known while living under the shadow of betrayal. The most important change, however, is within myself. I no longer allow anyone, family or otherwise, to define my worth. I have learned to stand up for myself, to set boundaries, and to prioritize my own well-being. I discovered a strength inside me that I never realized existed. Strength born not from privilege, but from survival, courage, and determination. Through this experience, I've also learned the value of forgiveness and self-love. I forgave myself for any guilt or doubt I carried, and that act of self-compassion freed me in ways I could never imagine. I don't live in anger or resentment. Instead, I channel that energy into creating a life that I love. I share this story with you because I want everyone watching to know that no matter how dark or painful a situation may feel, you have the power to take control of your life. You can reclaim your dignity, your freedom, and your happiness. Age, betrayal, or family conflicts do not define you. Your courage and choices do. Looking back, everything I endured, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the feeling of being trapped, was painful, yes, but it led me to a life far richer than I could have imagined. I turned pain into empowerment, weakness into strength, and fear into freedom. Today, I am proud of myself and the life I have built. If you are facing challenges, feeling trapped or being treated unfairly, I want you to remember this. You are stronger than you know. Stand up for yourself. Make bold decisions. Prioritize your dignity and happiness. And always remember, your life is yours and you deserve to live it fully. Thank you for listening to my story. If you found it inspiring, please subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts. And let others know that even in the face of betrayal, it's possible to reclaim your life and find true happiness.